Good morning, Jim.
Hi Wayne, hi everyone.
Good morning, Jim.
Hi Sandra.
Morning, Jim.
Hi David. And Sarah. Yeah.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
So, Jim, we are live at the moment, so I'm just waiting for the other folk to join us, and then we'll get started.
Okay.
But just let you know that what you say is open and will be attributed to your digital history.
Okay. That means I won't say anything.
I might just wait 2 or 3 minutes as the other folks start dropping in. If not, we can slowly get started. I've just got a message from Mark Singer in the US that he's running a few minutes late, so that's good. Erwin should be joining us because I see that he updated the report in the wiki, so I'm just going to wait a minute or two. Right, I see we're 4 minutes into the meeting. I wonder if we shouldn't just get started. We pretty much have all the working groups covered. I've received an apology from Christine Wehack, who is currently traveling in Europe, and obviously the time zone difference is not amenable to joining the meeting. But she has prepared a report and has asked me to speak on behalf of the Credit Transfer and Course Articulation Group. I've just received a note from...
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear, Sandra. Thanks very much. I've also just received a note from Mark Singer, who has let us know that he'll be joining a few minutes late. And I sent an email out to Erwin. I guess there's something that's holding him up, or there might be a tech issue, but we might as well get started. It's hard to believe that this is already the third meeting of the OERu Management Committee, which is actually a reflection of the level of activity that is taking place across our working groups. I posted the minutes of the previous meeting on the same day, and then also distributed. To date, I haven't received any comments or suggestions for alterations, so I will take those minutes as approved. It's interesting to note that all the effort we are making in publishing our minutes and meetings openly it seems to be worth the effort. I had a look last night. We had just roughly about 1,100 page views on the minutes of the previous meeting. So folk are reading the minutes. So that's all good. So just very briefly, the aims of our meeting, just to review our progress of the working groups, to have a look at how we're doing on our operational priorities so far, and I might just link to the operational priorities page. You'll note that in the chat area, I posted a link to the agenda. So if you want to follow the agenda on a separate screen, that might be easier. But in terms of our high priority items, we are progressing reasonably well. In terms of our targets to recruit 10 additional partners to date, so far we have 5 new partners, so that's going relatively well. We proposed the nominations of 20 courses. We've received 31 full course equivalents, so we've exceeded our targets there. The publishing of the course design guidelines, the first draft is already completed, so that's looking good. The quality group is working on streamlining our processes for nominations, so that's going well. And the credit transfer and articulation group are also in a good position to have guidelines ready by the end of the year. So in terms of our operational priorities, things are looking pretty good. I just want to welcome Owen, who has joined us, and I see Mark is also on board. And just let you know, we are broadcasting live, so that anything that you say will be attributed to your digital history. The third aim of this meeting is really to identify our target outputs in preparation for the third meeting of Anchor Partners in November. And we have a few agenda items speaking to that point. So moving to matters arising, what I did is I went through all the action items, and you'll see the majority of action items have been striked out. So what I did is the ones which have not been striked out yet, I just added to the matters arising. And we may not be able to address these at this meeting, but I just want to keep them there as a placeholder for the future. I said David Sadler has not joined us yet, so he would be able to give us feedback on the national regulatory issues, because he was going to raise this issue at the meeting of the Universities of Australia's Standing Group on Quality. We will see if David joins us in a couple of minutes. We are looking to develop a paper on how to deal with audio and video. There are a number of issues there. We haven't done any work on that yet, so I just want to keep that on the agenda. We are looking to interview partners to establish the obstacles they may be experiencing to engagement, and I'll speak to that point in relation to our process evaluation for 2014. And we also are looking to find a better way of communicating the needs of the OERu and how partners and volunteers can contribute. So again, I just want to keep that on the matters arising. Just for noting, I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to our new partners who have joined us since the previous meeting. Hamdan bin Mohammed Smart University, which extends the OERu to a 6th global region, the United Arab Emirates, so we have the Middle East on board. Of course, we are very pleased to have the Open University joining our network. Recently, Moscow State University of Economics, Science, Statistics and Informatics from the Russian Federation has confirmed they will be joining us. And the University of the Highlands and Islands has also confirmed that they'll be joining us. and the announcements around those new members will be made soon. So our network is growing. Of course, I'd like us to achieve our target of 10 anchor partners by the end of the year. Any comments from the floor so far?
Sandra, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear, Sandra. Please go ahead.
No, that's all right. I was just checking that I could finally get the sound working.
Okay, all good. So, moving on to the agenda, we'll take reports from the working groups on their progress to date. The first one on the list there is the Strategic Planning Working Group. And Jim, if you don't mind, I'll hand over to you. I published a short report.
Yeah, sure. The Strategic Planning Group, I think, has made some progress over the time, and the scope seminar, which is highlighted in the key points put up there by Wayne, was a useful exercise. And I think in general we're happy with the progress to date, and the feedback to date that we've received has been very constructive and useful. Probably the major development at the last meeting was to follow David Porter's idea and suggest that the strategic plan be treated as a living document. And we agreed that we try and review targets each year and include an annual report. So I think the operational priorities that we looked at earlier, the more that we can quantify a target, I think that's a more useful benchmark for us to work towards. And I think another useful document that was prepared as a result of the strategic planning group was the progress report that was sent out to the chief executive officers by Alan Davis recently, and that's a useful summary of what has been achieved, and we'll make that a part of the report. The annual report will become part of the strategic plan each year. And I think the other thing that sort of keeps the group honest is the fact that we've set a target, and obviously the third meeting that's forthcoming and the second meeting of the CEOs will mean that we'll strive to have a document ready for those times to be tabled. So by and large, I think we're going ahead steadily. Thanks, Wayne.
Thanks, Jim. I just wanted to note that I have posted a link to the letter that went out from the chair of the OER Council of CEOs, which included the progress report, which Jim just referred to. So there is a link to that document if anyone wants to review the contents. So at this point, any questions, thoughts, comments from the floor regarding the activities of the Strategic Planning Working Group?
Hi, Wayne, it's Sarah here, and I just wanted to add that the report that Jim just mentioned was circulated here at Wollongong, and our DVC was really impressed with it, and I think it was just really great for keeping the energy in the project and keeping the seniors up to date. So it certainly worked for me. I was very grateful for it. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Sarah. It's good to hear this kind of feedback in terms of how this documentation has been received by senior management or by executive management. Any other comments?
I might just add another brief comment, Wayne. Another outcome of the strategic planning group was to create a structure for the quick links to the project, because we appreciate that senior managers and other people involved aren't constantly reviewing where we're at. So as well as the progress report, I think the quick link structure that we've put up that's in the network now is a really useful point to just give a quick overview to senior managers or other interested parties about where the working groups are at and what the background history is, the link to the main marketing page, and so on. So if you haven't looked at that, I recommend that you just get familiar with it, because it's a sort of one-stop shop to access any part of the network, which is quite large now. Thanks.
Yes, thanks for that, Jim. That's been an extremely valuable addition, and from the OER Foundation side, we would like to thank the University of Southern Queensland's contribution there in coding up that page. It's been a valuable addition to helping folk find their way around, so thank you for that. So I'll take it there no further comments from the floor regarding the strategic planning working group report. So at this point, I'd like to move on and hand over to Erwin de Vries at Thompson Rivers University to briefly update us on the course design and development partners manual working group.
Hi everybody, we've been working away on this, and I also have with me Kelly Warnock, who's a construction designer here, who's been involved with developing this piece on the wrong. And so Kelly is going to give a few comments on the progress of this project.
Hi everyone. So we've gone over lots of the development process and what the partners need to know. But at this point, we're just looking for feedback from the different working groups, and then as well, when the SMEs go through that whole process, if there's anything else that they needed to know, or for the partners when they join up, what kind of outstanding questions are still there. So at this point, it's just a matter of getting lots of feedback, as well as with the sprint course, we're hoping to link to more of those resources and to contribute resources to that as well.
Well, thanks very much, and Erwin, thanks for inviting Kelly along. I've been watching the developments with keen interest, and you guys have done a sterling job. So what I might suggest is that through our various lists, we send out an invitation to various folk to provide us feedback, and I'll give some indication of how they can actually go about providing that feedback. So thank you very much for that. Any comments, suggestions, or thoughts from the floor? Right, it seems as though we can move on to the next item. At this point, let me hand over to Sarah Lambert at the University of Wollongong, who's convening the course approval and quality working group. So let me upload the report there. Sarah, over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Wayne. Yes, we've had a busy and active group, which has met 3 times, the 3rd time just yesterday to touch base. We're having 2 different time zones in our meetings, so we're having a first meeting of about 2/3 of our members, and then we're meeting again primarily for the South African representatives at typically a day later, and running through the same agenda and getting their input, and that's been working really well. So at this point in time, we have reviewed the Alberta eCampus quality standards as a clear contender for one of the quality instruments in the process, and we've also had another good look at the blueprint, the OERu design blueprint, which aims to design quality in during the course development. And the group at this stage is proposing that we have the blueprint as a sort of a design as you, quality as you go process of designing the course, and using a modified version of the Alberta checklist as a periodic review instrument. And so we're looking at developing 2 instruments, renaming them for our purpose, and presenting those in good draft form for the November meeting. And that would be the key things, I think.
And thanks for that, Sarah. And I'd just like to make a shout out for eCampus Alberta for releasing their quality standards under a Creative Commons Attribution license, which is again an excellent example of how the open model can leverage benefits for the network. And yeah, Sarah, and thanks for your work in leading this group. You're a good driver, and you're keeping us to task. Any questions or comments or thoughts from the floor?
Actually, yes, if I may. I haven't been able to look at a copy of that, the eAlberta Quality Framework. Is there one somewhere on the Wiki Educator page?
Well,
yes. Sorry, Sarah. You can.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll soon to have our version up. One of the actions at yesterday's meeting is that Meg Goodine will be converting the version that she has with some modifications to Wiki Educator pages so that we can share the work so far. And the version we're using is very modified very little. But I'm pretty sure our working group page in its listing for the first meetings would have a link digital through to the original from memory.
Oh.
And Mark, also to respond, I'll make sure that I include a link to the quality standards in the minutes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It just sounds like it would be an interesting document to go through.
Yeah, it would be good. And the only other thing as convener I would add is that we're working in this group with a mixture of folks with different levels of history with the partnership, and we have quite a few new members. And so one of the first things we did at the very first meeting was a kind of an induction to what it's all about, and the new members seem to really appreciate that, and I think Erwin sat in on that, and it was just another kind of feedback cycle about what needs to be included in the new partners handbook. So there's sort of been some interesting spin-offs from having these meetings as we have with so many of the new members in it, and we're also intending to have involvement in the sprint for the same reason, that we're proposing that the course blueprint becomes a really key method for ensuring that the quality factors are discussed and considered in the planning, but also so that the groups who are developing can communicate to the others in the group about what the subject is, what the assessment is like, and the learning outcomes, so that any thinking and conversation about cross-accreditation can start to happen. And we note that's we've got all of the courses that have been nominated, so huge numbers of courses, which is great. And the next step now will be to, through this sprint process, get folks up to speed with how to start their blueprint and get that online and get that communication happening, as well as the design thinking. So I think the group has had touched over a couple of, they've touched on course accreditation to a small degree in terms of how our process can help with the communication, and also with the contents of the new members' handbook. So it's been a broad set of communications, and that overlap that we noticed when we set the groups up has certainly been comfortably present within our meetings.
Thanks for that, Sarah. Any other comments or questions from any of the other members? There was just one item, I think we, in relation to a point that Sarah had made about the time zones, I think it's something as an OERu management committee group we're going to have to think about as our network expands. We've been very fortunate at this point in time that all our conveners are more or less in a time zone that we can meet synchronously. But given the growth, particularly of members from Europe and the Middle East, we are going to have a think about how we're going to be able to manage, time zones as more people join the working groups. So I'm just putting that as a thought that possibly it's something we should discuss at the partners meeting.
I would agree, and I think the temptation to hold a main meeting and record it is fine to a point, but by holding our second meeting where we've had 3 participants from the South African universities, the engagement is just, you know, a whole level higher when you have another meeting. So there's that, you know, active conversation that you get from the participants by giving them that opportunity to meet in their own zone that I fear you wouldn't get if you just sort of posted them a broadcast of what was said before. And having said that, a number of the members had watched the broadcast, or the minutes at least of the previous one were ready to roll on the second meeting, so it did speed it up somewhat. But it was enormously valuable to have the repeat. It does add the time, but I don't know whether in actual fact you save time on a sense of chasing and emailing and chasing type of thing. So I actually think it might have ended up being quite efficient.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worked well for the approval and quality group, and so I'm making a note that we add that as an agenda item for discussion at the partners meeting.
Cool.
Any other comments from the floor?
Jim here. I think also having a proactive approach to engaging the new members. I presume we'd all agree to do that. So that fits in with the focus there. But it would be interesting to have membership from the new partners, so that distributed throughout the key working groups. Thanks.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's an important point, Jim. Coincidentally, I've been having some bouncing ideas and discussions with David Porter, one of the members of the board of the OER Foundation, and David has got some good ideas about how we could potentially promote, you know, community engagement of the OERu partners. So I suspect that that's also an item which will feature on the agenda at the OERu partners meeting. Right, if there are no additional comments, I'll move on to the next item, which is the report back from the credit transfer and course articulation group. As I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, Christine Weehak has sent her apologies. She's traveling in Europe at the moment, so I'm going to be reporting back on behalf of Christine. I must say, I think it's been a productive group that has taken a very pragmatic approach to the challenges and complexities of credit transfer and course articulation. And the approach that the group has taken is to actually look at this issue from the perspective of the sending institution and the receiving institution. And what we did is, after one or two meetings, or could have been 3 meetings, I just don't recall now, came up with 4 key questions, which we distributed across the group to interview partners that had made reasonable progress with developing OERu courses. And the 4 questions being, is the course being offered for credit at your institution, which is a requirement of the OERu partnership? If yes, is your institution in a position to be able to provide a transcript for those students who are not actually, or a transcript for those learners who are not enrolled at a credential at your institution? The 3rd question, are you in a position to be able to offer summative assessment services for these students who are not registered as students at your institution? And if so, are you able to provide transcript credit? And so we've done a high-level discussion, or a high-level sort of summary of some of the partners. We're still in the process of getting information from a few of the other partners. But the results thus far are promising, and we believe that we've got a basis to actually develop a core set of guidelines to assist partners regarding how this might work. And the idea is that we'll be looking to table these guidelines for discussion at the partners meeting. So at this point, are there any questions relating to the work of the credit transfer and course articulation group?
You go, Sandra.
Yes, sorry. I was just wondering, is that survey gone out to all partner universities? Because I don't remember seeing it, but did it just go out to the members of the working group?
We took a decision not to go out to all partners simply because we didn't have the resource to survey all partners. So the thinking was that we made a selection of partners who made reasonable progress with their courses to see what they were doing and how they were managing it, to use it as a basis to inform a first draft. And so the discussion is that the draft will be distributed to all partners to get feedback, comments, suggestions for refinement.
No, that's excellent. I was just worried that I'd missed something.
No, it didn't go out to all partners.
Yeah, great.
I was just going to make the comment that Wollongong has just revised its credit policy, and that's now out for discussion internally. I've had a good look at it and been involved in its development, and I'm really happy with where it sits in terms of acknowledging open education as one of the scenarios, and it gets mentioned quite a few times. So, So in many ways, it's a good news story for credit from Wollongong, but in terms of the level of detail of what's on a transcript, I don't think it goes anywhere near that. So in the light of our new policy, I'd be personally interested to know the answers to these questions at this point. Having done quite a bit of thinking thus far, it might be a good opportunity to poke. So if it is possible for Wollongong to be included in this process, I think the time would be good. So I would be happy to facilitate if the working group did have the time. Otherwise, I'm happy to just liaise informally and try and use these questions myself to get a bit of clarity for myself.
Thanks for that, Sarah. What I can propose, given that we're in the same time zone and I'm also on that working group, I can easily arrange to add Wollongong onto that list to provide feedback. Yep.
That would be super. Thanks, Wayne.
Mark, you also on the working group. Is that a fair and accurate summary of our progress to date?
Sorry?
I was just saying, Mark, you're also on the working group, so I was just asking if you feel that's a fair and accurate summary of our progress to date.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. And yeah, we haven't, I don't think I made the last meeting, actually, but yeah, I think you're right.
Okay. Thanks for that, Mark. Any other comments from the floor? Right, if not, then I'll move on. So moving on to the curriculum and program of study working group, I know we've not had the opportunity to meet as a group since the last meeting, but there has been some discussion and ideas in terms of next steps. So I'm going to hand over to Sandra now.
Yes, thanks, Wayne. Yes, we had one meeting and we trialled a template for finding out which universities had Bachelor of Graduate Studies on Bachelor of General Studies, sorry, on their books. Only 2 of us replied, but there were a couple of issues around the way we had headings in the table, which we'll need to change. The idea then was to send this out to all OER uni partners, but we didn't get around to that, and that's my fault for not reconvening the group. Wayne, behind the scenes, has offered to help me complete those 2 tasks so that we have them done by the November meeting. So we will be doing a mini inventory. What does mini inventory mean? Does that mean we won't do all OEU partners, or does this mean it's a very short survey? Wayne?
Well, my understanding of sort of the mini inventory is we'll survey all partners, because I think it's important to get feedback from all partners. But the mini refers to the extent of the detail we'll be looking to get. So my gut feel or sense, and it would be good to take advice from the group, is essentially to find out which of our partners have a Bachelor of General Studies or equivalent credential on their books as kind of one component of the survey. The second component of the survey would be for those partners who do have a Bachelor of General Studies or equivalent on their books to actually just do take a look at the course nominations we got so far and do a probability estimate of whether those courses would actually carry credit towards the Bachelor of General Studies at the conferring institution. So we can just get a bit of a sense of how that might fit. So that was my sort of high-level thinking at this stage, and that could maybe start informing thinking about, for want of a better word, an idealized structure of a Bachelor of General Studies to help inform our nomination process. So at this stage, it's very much work in progress. But the thinking was to, get that feedback from the groups before the meeting, so we got that information on the table when we discussed this detail at the meeting. And to be fair, I mean, I think that developing the program of study is one of the most complex challenges we are going to have to deal with within the OERu, and I think it's something that needs, quality face-to-face discussion time. And the meeting would be a good opportunity to progress that agenda. Is my thinking.
Yeah, and that meeting won't work unless we have the data, so the the survey is very important. I mean, the other questions that we asked in the template was how many points would you take for credit from an external, course?
Yeah, and I think the survey would include one item on the, just a very basic item on local matriculation requirements in terms of the number of credits you have to complete locally in order to, to have the degree conferred.
Ah, okay. The second task that Wayne was going to help me with was a high-level audit, so not a mini inventory, of which of the existing OER uni course nominations could be recognised or credited at the conferring institution. So it's similar, but it's not just about the Bachelor of General Studies.
Yep.
And I must say I congratulate you on the number of courses that people have submitted now. So 31, it's looking good, and the fact that you've already framed them up into a Bachelor of General Studies as well as a Diploma of Tertiary Education and the other one, I mean, it really is looking very concrete.
Yes, it's definitely looking a lot better than what it was, and the two other aspects I was rather happy with the 2014 audit is we have two additional programs on the table. We've got a graduate diploma in tertiary education, plus the postgraduate diploma in disaster risk management studies. I'm not sure of the exact title, from Northwest University. So there are, programs over and above the Bachelor of General Studies that are being tabled by member institutions. So that's great. And the other thing I was very excited about was the large number of courses that will be structured in micro format, because I think that's going to be of a strategic leverage point for the network in the future, particularly around reuse and course articulation at an international level. So it is looking good, yeah.
Yes, I wasn't sure whether we should be worried or excited by the number of micro courses. It does allow for more flexibility, but I'm worried about the contributions of the member institutions if we continue to put out micro courses.
Yeah, I think it's a worry if institutions only contribute a single micro course. The sort of rule of thumb is that you have to contribute a full set of micros that will lead to credit towards a course at your institution. So, and I think that's if we don't have that guideline or that foundation, I think it will become a worry in the future. You're absolutely right, Sandra. Yeah.
Okay, that's all from our group, I think.
Thanks for that, Sandra. So at this point, I'd like to open up for questions or suggestions, thoughts from the floor.
Jim here. I'd just like to endorse the point that we need to have the whole course structure. I mean, what we've done at USQ is taken the whole course and we're now breaking it down into 4 micro courses. So that gives alternative pathways, but still leading to credit. The other point I wanted to make in relation to that was for people who are considering new courses, it's often more manageable to conceive a blueprint for a whole course structured as micro courses, but the development doesn't seem quite so onerous if you can move by developing a micro course at a time. So I can see that it could add a bit of momentum to new courses, and it also allows us, I think, to trial different pedagogical approaches and to adjust them for the micro courses coming through. But of the grander scheme things, I think the sooner we're able as a group of partners to get a coherent program structure for the Bachelor of General Studies, I think that also will add momentum and focus in terms of which courses would contribute and which areas were strong and weak, and it would just give us a little more strategic, pragmatic strategic focus going forward. So I look forward to seeing the outcomes of this work that's ongoing. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Jim. Yeah, and I think your point about the ability with micros to stagger development is a feature that will help us build momentum in delivering product. So, and I've certainly noticed that from myself around these developments that the mountain of a micro doesn't seem so high if we can sort of stagger it over a period of time. So that all bodes well for development.
Yeah, I think the chicken and egg problem around strategic versus practicalities is also that when we, for example, at CSU, when we've offered a course, a full course, but then we discover there are other courses being offered of a similar topic by other universities, so we've had to cut back to micro so that we can do things in collaboration with other universities rather than competing in the same topic area. But that'll eventually sort itself out.
Yeah, and that again, I think, is an advantage of the network. I mean, the more our sort of micro courses could be reused as in parallel mode delivery with full fee students and free OERu learners studying in parallel, that it's something very unique that our network would be able to provide in the future. Yeah. Any other thoughts or comments from the floor? If not, I'll move on. The next working group on the list is the technology working group. I see Brian Lamb hasn't been able to make it to the meeting. However, both Sarah and myself serve on the technology working group, so I'm happy to give a quick update there. And Sarah, you can help me fill in the gaps I've missed.
Sure, no worries.
So the technology group is one of the groups who's actually been meeting quite regularly. We pretty much have a standing meeting every fortnight where we catch up on the technology issues, and it's been working well for the technology group. The major issues or areas we've been looking at is obviously first off the migration of MediaWiki to the latest instance, which has been a mammoth project. I won't speak too much to that now because we've got an agenda item a little bit later a little bit later in the agenda. The other area we've been working on is developing the presentation layer of OERu courses using a snapshot approach to apply a responsive design CSS framework, and the idea there is to mirror the look and feel of the OERu website for OERu courses, with the ability for individual partners to customize the branding. In conjunction with this, I know that the University of Southern Queensland has also been developing an alternative approach for theming and structuring courses, which is a great example of the open model that we will have a variety of approaches partners could choose from in the future. So that has been going well. I am happy to report there that Otago Polytechnic from their own funding, has made a contribution to commission the Newsplash team who are working on the visual design of this new presentation layer we'll be using. So that's progressing well. The other big item that we were working on was, of course, the Google Summer of Code project, which has now been completed to develop a peer evaluation tool. So we were able to have an alpha test of that with one of the Open Content Licensing for Educators course, and the student has completed a number of revisions. So that's pretty much the main areas of activity of the technology group. Sarah, have I missed out anything?
Oops. Hi guys. That's pretty good. The only thing to say is that USQ have been doing some really helpful work with creating a script that allows you to sort of package up pages that are written on the wiki and order them in a presentation in a way ready for presentation to students. So we just did so Tim McCallum made that work for USQ about a month ago, and just in this last week did a modification for Wollongong to see, if I could make that happen locally. So we are now looking to modify that so we can have two slightly different layouts in the template, and that kind of speaks to an idea we had at the Australian planning meetings to have a set of templates that you could apply to the presentation of your courses. So there's been some really good progress in that area, but having said that, we've also noted a few limitations. So we haven't got the ability to embed objects, for example, like from Vimeo or YouTube, into it, just sort of static images. So working out, how far we want to go with this. But nevertheless, it's been a big step forward to see the course not look like the wiki, if you know what I mean. Look more like a student would expect a course to look like. So yes, very happy with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Sarah. Yes, I think the visual layer and presentation layer is a vast improvement from what we've had in the wiki. I just want to clarify the point about the embedding of the video. Partners will be able to embed video from Vimeo or an external web source. So when the snapshot is made, it will be possible to do that. The issue comes in is the embedding of the video within WikiEducator, because there are issues around licensing, of course, because if it's not openly licensed, we can't embed it. And there are also issues around advertising that is embedded in videos that the WikiEducator community will not support. But we have solutions that the link can be specified, when you're building it in the wiki. And when the snapshot is made, those embedded videos will appear in the snapshot, because obviously these are partner-related snapshots where there's a little bit more flexibility around licensing and formats. So that problem has been solved.
I'm missing something, because the tool that I've been working with, Tim, it isn't yet solved, so it doesn't yet work. So perhaps we just have a bit more work to do in that area, in the actual snapshot tool.
So Jim here, I'm also in the work that I'm doing with Tim. It is a work in progress, and I think these matters, will be resolved as we work through. And another dimension of the work, which sort of cuts across the pedagogy as well as the technology, is that we are moving towards a pedagogical template, what we call an author view, as well as a student view. So we've started with the student view and tried to make it, less complex, and sort of more intuitive, if you like, in what I call the user design, once we've got the instructional design worked through, and coming up with a pedagogical template. And once we've refine the student view in the micro course that we're working on at the moment. We'll be reflecting that back as an author view, which is a sort of alternative template with a sort of snapshot view to enhance or make more efficient the course development. So I think it really is an interesting little project here, and alongside whatever happens in the course sprint, I think we'll learn a lot, and we'll have a more efficient process for actual course design and development emerging. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for that, Jim, and also the work that USQ have been doing in the space is another good example of the power of the community source model, because all our technology is open source, but a partner with particular skills and strengths in a particular area is able to strengthen the network and develop a larger number of templates than we would have had we all been working on our own. So I'm very excited by the developments that are happening there at USQ. Any other comments or thoughts, suggestions from the floor before we move on? So then at this point I'd like to hand over to Mark Singer, who will be convening the PLA working group. We got off to a slow start because our regional convener has moved on, and we've got some initial thinking and working towards how this might progress in the future. So Mark, I'm going to hand over to you.
Well, thanks, Wayne. Actually, I think you just said half of what I was going to say, which means I didn't have very much. But you're right, Diane, I guess, has retired. And one of the first questions that we've been wrestling with since that happened was exactly how to go about convening this group and how to work toward the development of a PLAR or PLA course that all of us could use. A couple of people have emailed me to express interest in participating in this group, but and we have posted a couple of open courses those are the Thomas Edison State College contributions thus far, and we've gone back, and as a result of some of the comments people have made, sort of removed some of the references that are specific to Thomas Edison from those courses. But that did not come about as a result of any organized meeting, which we have not had yet. Those were just simply helpful comments that people sent along. So I think Wayne and I, in an email exchange a few weeks ago, thought that maybe the best way to determine how to go forward with this committee is to address this topic in greater detail at the meeting in Hobart in November. Is that fair to say, Wayne?
Yes, and I must say the concept of having an OER PLA course that is available for credit would be a huge plus for the network. And I know a number of partners have a keen interest in this area, and I think it'll be good to nut out a more detailed discussion at the next partners meeting when we've got a few of the folk around the table.
Yeah, I think one of the issues, of course, is well, it's the same issue that we're all struggling with in trying to figure out how our courses equate to one another across countries and continents. It's that PLA, well, we don't even have an acronym that we all agree upon, do we? And so, but the idea of how this can be used, how prior learning assessment and recognition can be used, varies not only from country to country, but I know in the United States from institution to institution. So this will prove to be somewhat of a challenge for us, but we'll have to figure out whether it's a modular approach or something else that we do when we meet.
Yeah, that's that's an excellent point, and again, another advantage of the international nature of our network. We can get to see where the areas of overlap are, and figure out where it makes sense. Yeah, I'm very excited by the proposal. Any other comments, thoughts, ideas from the floor relating to the PLA portfolio course working group?
Just a very short point that when the course quality group began, I had a problem recruiting members and getting the ball rolling, and I did, on Wayne's advice, send out a single email to the whole planning list asking for volunteers to come and help us get the energy in the group, and that was the reason why I ended up with such a huge group. So is that something, did that happen, a request for new members or even a convener go out on the planning email?
If you're asking about the PLAR committee, I think the question was more not so much whether or not folks were interested, but simply how to proceed. What would be the agenda for the first meeting? So we've got one course out there. What does everyone think about it? It seemed that it would be helpful to get feedback from folks on how to proceed with this group, and to determine really what the goals would be for everyone.
Okay. So I'm with you now. I misunderstood what quite you meant by that. So that's made it a lot clearer. Sure.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I think it's a bit more of a fundamental issue than.
The scope of what you're trying to achieve. Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's one of those areas where there are a number of complexities given the diversity of practice. Some folk call credit transfer blah, where other folk would be vehemently disagreeing with that statement. Right. Thanks for that. I assume there are no further comments there. David, at this point, if I hand over to you, marketing, recruitment, and communication. I know we've also not had an opportunity to meet again, but it'll be good just to touch base.
Yeah, sure, Wayne. Look, it will be a fairly brief report because, as you say, we haven't actually met recently. This is a very small group, and there's only actually 3 members of the working group. So one of the things we do need to do is to recruit more members to the working group from across a range of other partners. We only met once as a group, and that was some time ago now. We do need to meet again soon to kind of move this forward. I think perhaps one of the priorities for the group should be recognition that we didn't quite meet our desired target in terms of new OERu partners this year. We've got 5 new partners this year, which is great, but that's less than we're targeted. And part of this working group's task is to obtain new OERu partners. So we do need to probably be a bit more proactive in that space and make it a bit of a priority in terms of trying to meet our target for 2014. Further down in the agenda today, there is a proposal that we put forward a draft plan of action for discussion at the partners meeting in Tasmania in November. I think that's probably a way to go. I think this small working group needs the input of a wider group of partners to consolidate, to develop and consolidate a plan of action to move forward for the future. So I think probably that's all I have to report at the moment.
Thanks for that, David. Yes, and I agree it would be good if we can get some focused energy around moving or achieving our recruitment targets. In line with that, the letter that went out from the chair, which I think was one of the items we'd specified in the working group, from the chair of the OERu Council of CEOs, there was an invitation to our vice-chancellors to assist with identifying leads for potential partners. So we'll see how that goes. The letter only went out recently. So if there are any questions or thoughts or ideas from the floor. Right, if not, I'll move on.
Hey, Sandra here. I'm wondering if the meetings in Australia in November might be used as a way of attracting at least Australian members, because we have the OER symposium as well as the CEO's meeting. You know, maybe invitations could go out to potential members to attend, or see, at the moment the advertising around the OER symposium, maybe we could join in with you, Taz, on that advertising to sort of recruit new members. Sometimes new members come from being able to see that there's something active happening.
Yeah, and historically it's interesting that we get a slight increase in membership applications round about the meetings, and so that's an important point, Sandra. So I'm wondering, I'm just thinking in terms of taking this forward, maybe if we, just as a small group from kind of the Australian partners, our Australian network, if we just maybe bounce a couple of emails around what we might be able to do on that front. I mean, certainly from the OER Foundation's perspective, we, you know, as we are subscribed to open development, we would welcome, you know, observer institutions at at the partners meeting, and as you say, you know, seeing how the network works is an important part of the decision-making process. The only challenge we do have is the CEO's meeting. We are nearing capacity, so we won't be able to accommodate observers there. Because of the practical limitations, but I think offline with the Australian partners we can have a bit of a conversation to see how we might move that forward. There is another Australian partner institution that is at the final stages of evaluating whether they will join. Obviously I can't make that information public yet, but there is a possibility that we will have an additional Australian partner as well. So that's a good suggestion. Thanks, Sandra.
Okay, happy to have that offline.
Okay, any other thoughts, reflections? Right, then let me move on. Item 7 around the course nominations. We've already had a good discussion around that. We're happy with the numbers, and we have alluded to the challenges around micro courses and how we propose to take that forward. Jim has also given us a good overview of the strategic planning process and this concept that the strategic plan will be developed as a living document. We have the advantage that we meet annually, as we have an international meeting every year, and that would give us the opportunity to be able to incorporate the annual report and the recalibration of targets for the coming year in line with any tweaks or refinements we need to implement for the strategic plan. So that's the approach that we're going to be taking in the formulation of the plan. And the strategic planning working group will now, during October, be actually drafting the plan from taking in all the feedback into account to have that ready for the partners meeting. But one request for the annual report component is a request to each of our conveners to develop their part of the report that to give feedback on the working group activities. And what I'm proposing is that each convener prepares, 3 paragraphs. One paragraph which reports on the agreed objectives of the working group, a succinct report of the activities of the working group for the year, as well as any insights or recommendations the working group might have for looking forward towards 2015. So I'm just going to open that up to the floor. Are we all comfortable with preparing a short report for our related activities?
Yep, sounds good.
Oh, of course, of course.
Yes.
Yes.
And I assume Jim agrees because it was a proposal of the strategic planning working group, so yeah.
No problem.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. Erwin, I'm not sure if you're still around. Are you happy with that?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, loud and clear. Thanks for that, Erwin.
That sounds good to me.
The next item of the agenda is really the meat, and that is to think about our output targets for each of our working groups. And I've been bold in true wiki tradition. I've suggested a number of target outputs each of our working groups might consider, based on I'm pretty much on all the working groups, so I've used my inside knowledge there to think about what might be realistic targets for each of our working groups as discussion items for this agenda. Obviously, the strategic planning working group, our main output is to actually develop the draft of the strategic plan, which is inclusive of the annual report, which will be tabled at the partners meeting and the CEO's meeting. So that's pretty much a given. So moving on to the curriculum and program of study working group, what I've suggested as tentative outputs there is this to table this inventory of OERu partners that have a Bachelor of General Studies, the audit of which courses could be accredited towards the Bachelor of General Studies, and would that be a realistic target for the working group, Sandra?
Sorry, unmuting. But you wanted by October the 10th.
Well, in time for the partners meeting, which will be the 2nd of November.
Yeah, actually, you're right. It is coming up very fast, isn't it? Well, we'll have to do it.
Well, I've got some good news. I haven't shared this yet, but I have a draft questionnaire which I worked on yesterday evening, so I'll be able to distribute that today. So we're making some progress.
We'll make it work. We have to. Nothing like a deadline.
You're telling me. Okay, so that sounds good. The Course Design and Development Partners Manual Working Group. I think we already got a first draft on the table, Erwin, as you know, from your report. So maybe that needs to be tweaked a little in terms of integrating any feedback we receive by the time of the meeting. Right.
No problem. We'll be ready.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Erwin. So the next one is the Course Approval and Quality Working Group. My suggested output there, Sarah, is the initial draft of the quality standards and the draft design blueprint. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I proposed that in my summary, and we've just modified the name of those two documents, but apart from that, yep, good to go.
Okay, so I need to note I must update the name change, right? Great. The Credit Transfer and Course Articulation Working Group, so in consultation with Christine, we'll provide a summary of those partner interviews and then also an initial set of guidelines that we will table for discussion at the meeting. And I need to also include Wollongong, but that's noted already. The Technology Work Group, I've suggested that we have a prototype that we can demonstrate of the snapshot using the theme, and I haven't consulted with USQ yet, but possibly they would also be able to demo the work that they've been doing at the meeting. Jim, do you think that sounds reasonable?
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. We're looking to get a demo up by the middle of next week for internal purposes, so we should be there. The only issue is who might be available at that meeting to demonstrate that, but I know David's going. I'm trying to get Tim there as well. Unfortunately, I won't be able to attend, but I think between us we'll be ready to do a demo as suggested.
What we might also be able to do there is kind of a remote demo as well. If for some other reason Tim is unable to travel, he might be available for 15 or 20 minutes we can demo it online.
Yeah,
I spoke to Tim yesterday, and it almost certainly he is going to attend now.
Oh, okay, fantastic.
I've got a chat with Tim at 10 this morning, so I hadn't heard that, David. Thanks.
Regarding the PLA portfolio course, without consultation with Mark, what I've suggested is to actually design the activity we will conduct at the meeting for the PLA working group. Mark, is that a fair way to go?
Yes, that's an excellent idea. I'll draft something in advance.
Fantastic. We've already had some discussion, David, around the plan of action for the marketing and recruitment component in preparation for the meeting.
Yeah, fine, Wayne. You and I might talk a bit more about this offline.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Fine.
Yeah, and so that will be great. The confirmation of those outputs that gives us the basis to actually start casting the first draft of the agenda for the partners meeting. So that's all looking good. Item number 10 on the agenda is the update of our MediaWiki software engine, which was a major upgrade. And this is really a shout out to Jim Titzler, our lead technologist, who has been slaving away at the planning and implementation of this upgrade. It was a considerable upgrade in terms of updating a number of legacy extensions that we had, and the upgrade went seamlessly. I hardly noticed that Wiki Educator was offline at the announced time, and from memory it was back online sooner than we expected. So that's gone very well, and I just want to acknowledge and thank Jim's work in moving this forward. Now, the big advantage we have now is the integration of the visual editor, which will make it an order of magnitude easier for newbies when editing in the wiki. So this is a big step forward. There are still some updates that we need to be working on, and that is related to a good solution for implementing our pedagogical templates in the wiki, but that's pretty much work in progress. It's phenomenal what Jim is able to do, given our capacity constraints. I mean, the OER Foundation is a total staff of only 2 folk, so big thanks to Jim here. Any thoughts and feedback? I'd be keen to know if anybody's tried the visual editor yet, and your thoughts on whether it's going to help folk get started in the wiki.
Hi Wayne, it's Sarah here, and yeah, I also found the upgrade seamless and went from hacking away with asterisks and hashtags for bullets and whatnot one day, and then a few days later there was sort of 2 ways to do it, and a slightly different screen just throws up to just confirm the changes that you made. It prompts you to just do that little bit of indexing about whether the edit was a minor edit or what in fact you'd done, which is a step when I was in a rush previously I tended to skip. So it's nice on a couple of different levels, and I've enjoyed it since. So I think it is it's definitely it's great creds to Jim for his work there. It's obviously been big, and it's much appreciated.
Yes, thanks for that, Sarah, and I think you've highlighted an important aspect of this is that both methods are still available. You can use the visual editor for folk who aren't interested in using wiki syntax, but the full power of the MediaWiki software engine, which is an incredibly powerful piece of software, is still available for the more geeky types who actually want to make the system rock. So I think that's a good step forward. Yep. Right, I take it that there are no additional comments from the floor, so then I'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the need for a project management tool. I distributed to all the members of to all the conveners on the OERu management committee the results of some of the desktop research I've been doing around trying to source a project management tool to assist with the high-level project planning, so we can get an overall picture of what is happening across the network. And my recommendation is that we implement a hosted instance of the SO planning tool, which is an open source tool. It's a formal project management tool that we would use for the coordination of our high-level projects with the OERu Management Committee. And then also for individual activities, which would be more agile in their needs, to consider recommending that folk use Trello boards, which is an amazing tool for smaller activities and sort of agile-related project developments. So the motion I'd like to move is that we implement a hosted instance of SO planning for us to use as the project management tool for the OERu Management Committee projects. It's affordable, it's open source, and we'll have access to all the backups. So if it carries your approval, I'd like to go ahead with getting that instance set up. And I'll take silence to mean assent.
I would agree. I think it'd be good to have tools like that. And as much as we put a lot of our planning sort of documentation into the wiki, it's all textual and doesn't necessarily translate into a project plan and planning process that's easily understood just by at a quick look, which most planning tools kind of give you a big level, charts and graphs and so on that I think are a lot easier to work with.
Yeah. And one of the advantages I had I looked at the tool is, we'll continue having all our planning documentation in the wiki, but it's a simple, it's very easy to actually set a link on the relevant project to the planning documentation. So we'll have that the best of both worlds, sort of the open planning documentation, but also a more sophisticated scheduling tool, for want of a better word. To get an overall picture, you can generate a Gantt chart of the activities that are happening and the key milestones. So I think that they will work well together.
It looks good. I haven't had a chance to go through it thoroughly, but it looks as good as any of the other ones I've reviewed for my own work. So
yeah. Look, the only downside is, from what I can see, it doesn't really have a Flash interface. But to be fair, that's not the reason we wanted to use the tool. If we could, have a Gantt chart for each meeting, that would be a great plus, I think. Yeah.
I've had a quick look at it as well, and endorse the previous comments. The other issue is that I think as we move towards actual delivery and engagement on a grander scale, we'll need a more thorough integration of plannings of offers and so on. So if by that stage we're familiar with the tool, it might well contribute in that sphere as well.
Yeah. And I think that's an important point, because one of the things I've checked up, the hosted instance is for unrestricted users and unrestricted number of projects, which then means anybody in the network that actually wanted to use the project planning tool for their own course design and development would be able to do that. So we're not restricted in any way there, so that's quite useful. So it seems as though we have general agreement. What I'll do is I'll proceed with that, and then of course I'll give each of our members of the management team admin rights on the system, and we'll give it a try, see how it works. And that again is the power of open source. If you find it's not helping us, we won't lose much by then trying to find a replacement tool. So thank you for that.
Sounds really good. Looking forward to trying that out, Wayne.
Thanks for that, Sarah. Yeah, I played with the tool. It took me about 10 minutes to figure out how it worked, and I have to say, I've used a number of these tools in the past, and you end up with this kind of situation where you spend more time trying to figure out the project management planning tool than getting any activities done. And the simplicity of this tool is what attracted me. It's just got the bare bone elements one needs for project planning, and so we can focus on the activities rather than wasting time trying to figure out how the tool works.
Yeah, I have the same experience, and I just would comment that we're nearly able to do it with what we have. So we just need that next step up, rather than, you know, so it'll feel for us like it's just extending our current practice as opposed to turning the practice we have on its head, which is the experience I tend to find with adopting a mega tool. It doesn't feel like it's helping what you're doing. It feels like it's forcing you to do something different, which I just instinctually don't like.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, Sarah. Right. The next item on the agenda is the 2014 process evaluation. When we started the project back at the November meeting of the founding anchor partners, we agreed to adopt the SIP evaluation framework to help guide the project. We're reaching the point now where it would be good to actually have a process evaluation component of our activities this year. And this is also in part of my obligations to our funders. I've agreed to provide evaluation input. And the thinking here is I'm wanting to contract or commission the Australian Digital Futures Institute to assist with that evaluation. What I have in mind is a short online survey of all partners relating to the activities. The idea is to produce a draft of the questions we would use for this survey and table them for discussion at our partners meeting. And then I was also thinking of incorporating a number of selected interviews, and this is to address Mark's suggestion from a previous meeting to have this discussion about identifying obstacles to engagement. And again, it's one of these issues. If we're reporting on 2014, we kind of got to complete the full year to be able to report on it. So it's work in progress. Any thoughts and ideas, feedback?
I think also, Wayne, that the process evaluation probably needs to cover a little bit of the input evaluation. We did the context evaluation, and I think we've moved relatively quickly, but there are still elements of input of design. So I'm not sure if that complicates it or whether you need to move straight to process. But I think, in my understanding of the model, there would be elements of input of actual, the design issues that we're looking at that are still reflected in some of the working groups.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point, Jim. Look, my limitation is budget. I've only got X amount of money in terms of what we can spend. I wonder if my other limitation is I'm not an expert on the SIP evaluation model, so I might liaise with you or colleagues that are more well versed in the model, to give guidance on how we can best cut the cloth to fit the requirements of the model. Would that make sense?
Yeah, that would be fine. And obviously, we've got to respond to the Hewlett Foundation, so I'm sure we can come up with something pragmatic.
Yep. Okay. Thanks for that. Last item on the agenda is our 2014 meetings. We have the partners meeting, the third partners meeting, which will be hosted at the University of Tasmania, which is running back to back with the Australian National Symposium on OER. And I have a question from David Porter, who's watching online, is whether a separate registration is required for the OER symposium. If folk have registered for the partners meeting and indicated they are attending the symposium, a separate registration won't be required. I am not sure if there's a cost for folk attending the symposium. I will need to check up on that, which was the other question David had asked. So I'll follow up on that. Does anyone on the list know if there's a cost involved with attending the symposium?
Yeah, Wayne, I just looked at that a couple of days ago, and it's $200. So I would imagine, although we could possibly forward names of people who said they want to come, I imagine there would still have to be some additional action with regard to that cost.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'll do is, David and other folk listening, I'll follow up on that with the organisers, and then post a response on the list. Regarding the
I've already registered my team to go to the symposium, so I hadn't heard anything about there being any cross subsidisation, but I had heard that they were almost full because their venue is limiting their size.
Okay, so I'll need to follow up on that. Okay, that we're speaking of registrations, Sandra, the CSU team haven't registered yet for the partners meeting, so we must just follow up on that. And we won't have the OERu partners meeting.
Haven't we? I thought we did that months ago.
No, not yet. I'll follow up on an email. It's not a problem. We don't have space issues, and the OERu is an open free initiative. We've got no costs associated with attending.
Is this the one in Tasmania?
Yeah, because they're the two meetings, and I think this is where the confusion's coming in. So the folk, if you most probably registered for the national symposium, but have not submitted your registration.
Well. So I'll double check. Thank you.
Yeah, but not a problem. I just want to get those names on the list here for the planning. Okie dokie. So, any other questions relating to the meetings? That's pretty much administrative stuff. If not, I'm rather chuffed that we've been able to get through our agenda on time.
Could I just mention the possibility that we would like to run something back to back with the Chief Executive Officers meeting on the Monday in Sydney?
Absolutely.
So, as part of our OLT grant on open education, we were flagged to run a policy think tank. We weren't going to do it to next year, but we thought we'd take the opportunity of having chief executive officers from around the world there to perhaps provide some case studies that would inform Australian national policy on OER practice, on open educational practice. So Wayne has said he thought that would be possible. I'm just checking with Sarah about the venue or whether we have to find another venue. But I'd like to invite USQ and others here on this list, if they're coming to Australia, to be part of that afternoon think tank.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent idea, Sandra, particularly because the CEO's meeting is scheduled as a morning meeting inclusive of a working lunch. So I guess a number of the folk would have the afternoon available, so it'll actually work quite well, yeah.
Great.
Sandra, I did just see that email before the meeting started, and I'll check the venue capability and let you know. If the boardroom is free, that would be great. I know for certain that the Sydney Business School has exams in that period, so that none of the other spaces are a possibility. So it will just come down to the boardroom.
Yeah, maybe the boardroom won't be big enough. Maybe I will have to look at another venue.
Yeah, and so that was, I know that because we reached capacity with our meeting, and I was looking to see if we could get into a normal room, and we just absolutely can't. So so I'll see. I will check that for sure. The only other thing that's coming from the back of my brain is there was a conversation a few months ago as we reviewed the open content licensing for educators course about how we would quite like to additionally create some quality professional video case content for that program, which is such an important one for sort of training up our newbies and partners. But I was also thinking to possibly have some film crew there in the afternoon, so people leaving the meeting, we could film them for that project. So that's just brought that back to my mind, and I need to give some consideration as to whether that's still practical, and if people could rotate in the afternoon space between attending some, your research element, and as well as having some time to pop out and give us 10 or 15 minutes to record a case study for the open content licensing course.
If we've reached capacity in the boardroom, do you think you and I should try and find a different venue in Sydney?
It's a possibility, I suppose. Just noting that people have made accommodation bookings around this venue. So, but yes, we haven't got heaps of time. But I don't know whether we will have too many late potential comers. I mean, it would be a late plan to get going now to come to Sydney is my feeling. What do you think, Wayne?
I mean, we can just look at the numbers. Where we're at the moment, there are 24 seats in the boardroom. We currently have 24 people registered, although we have space for a back row of 4 folk. So I'm willing to give up my seat at the table to sit in the back row if other folk arrive, because obviously I would rather not have to turn anybody away. Judging from the partners that we've got at the moment, I don't expect that we will get more than two or three folk attending. Although that said, we've actually got very good attendance at this meeting. At our first CEO's meeting, we had 11 or 12 folk from memory. This time round, we've got 24, representing about 50% of our network. So that's great growth. So, I think it's worth looking at kind of a Plan C option, at least to know what the demographic is, right?
I'm just wondering, is there a link which shows who's registered, or am I not looking in the right place?
Yes, there is a link. Let me quickly find it.
That's all right. We can do it. We can do it afterwards if you like. But I was thinking, when you said I haven't registered for the partners meeting either, I better check the links and see who's registered and who's not registered.
Yes, Sandra, I'll send you those links after the meetings. Quickly look at the CEO's meeting. There we go. So I'll send that link through now in the chat.
No, I do seem to have looked at that before, and
it has grown quite a lot in the last month.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yep. Okay, just before we wrap up, I just want to also note a contribution from David Porter in the Q&A, and a recommendation that we consider and incorporate a sequential exploratory design with the interviews ahead of the survey for the evaluation. And just to acknowledge David's contribution, I've made a note of that, and we'll incorporate that as a recommendation as we develop the evaluation process. So thank you for that, David. Right, folk, we are officially 3 minutes over, so I didn't achieve my target of finishing up on time. But if there are no other contributions, thank you very much for all your work and moving the OERu forward. I will do my best to post the draft of the agenda or the draft of the minutes of this meeting by the close of business today and get that distributed. So thank you very much for your contributions.
Thanks, Wayne.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Bye,
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, Wayne.
See you later. Ciao.